Marinas around the world are full of boats with people that had grand plans to sail all around the world, but never quite managed to leave the dock.
Sunshine Daydream, walking in the tall trees, going where the wind goes, blooming like a red rose.
So I'm back in St. Pete today aboard Sunshine Daydream. Tracy's still, she's back in the OV, getting our land-based life together, and I'm out here trying to get our boat put together, kind of a divide and conquer. If we want to be able to live kind of semi off the grid, we've got to have a few things, and one of those things is fresh water. So this boat came with a water maker. It's actually a desalinator. What it does is it converts salt water into fresh water for drinking and cooking and showering and all that. These desalination water makers are supposed to be run all the time, and this one hadn't been run for about 6 months. So I'm going to try to get it up and running today, and hopefully I can get all the bugs worked out. So the water maker on this boat is located down in the port engine hatch, so I'm going to be doing some boat yoga today, trying to get down here and get to it. So I'm down here in the engine hatch, and the water maker is made up of 3 key components, and this is the first one. This is the pre-filter, and what happens is salt water comes in here through the hull and goes into the pre-filter, gets all the big stuff out, and then goes down here and then moves over and moves that water to a high pressure pump, which is located back here. This high pressure pump takes that water and raises the pressure up to about 600 psi and runs it through this membrane system. What happens in this membrane system is it is so fine that the salt cannot get through it, but the water molecules can. The salt stays on the outside of these membranes, the water goes through the inside, and then the water is pumped out into a fresh water tank, a holding tank that we have on the boat, and then the waste, which is a briny, salty, just heavily salted water, is pumped overboard. So the first thing that I want to do is flush out the system and clean it up. Now, while I'm waiting for the system to flush out, what I'm going to try to do is to disconnect. This is the line that takes the fresh water from the water maker into our holding tank. I'm disconnecting this in case I don't make good fresh water. I don't want it going into our holding. So the next thing I need to check is where the salt water actually comes into the boat, and I'm in the aft port cabin underneath the floor, and there is a valve right there. It's called a seacock that allows the salt water to come in. Well, I have to tell you, I've tried this before when I didn't have all the information, and it did not produce fresh water. So I'm hoping a couple things have changed. One is we have a lot more battery power now, and these things take a lot of energy to run. And I have the manual now, so I've been reading the instructions. But all right, so I switched the valve from fresh water over to salt water. I have the engine turned off for a second just so I can hear all the motors running and everything. First thing we need to do is turn this on, and hopefully that will start up the motor, the high pressure pump. There it goes. Slowly increasing the pressure. It can take about a minute. You can see the gauge creeping up. Pressure. And this is a self-checking system. Right now it's still, wow, now it says good quality. I think we're producing water. All right, I'm back down in the engine compartment. This is the closest I've got to making water so far, but the system seems like it's under pressure. It says it's producing 60 liters per hour. Says the quality is good, but I'm not getting any output, so I have to figure out where that water's going. So I'm not sure if this is a good idea or not, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this control panel off and look behind it and see if it will tell me if there's a valve or something that's not letting the water go to the right place. What you don't see in this video is the 15 times I got to get in this engine compartment to get a tool or something like that. You got to be in shape. Oh yeah, and did I mention it's Florida? It's July. The sun's up, and I was running this engine, so this engine is even hot. So yeah, it's a little bit warm in here. So I tried to take this panel off. It doesn't want to come loose because there's some wires and hoses holding it back. I can see the outtake hose for the water maker supply is right here. I need to get to that on the other side. So I'm going to actually take this whole wooden panel off right here. All right, so I got the panel disconnected, and I don't know if I have any business doing this or not, but I know that this is the outflow pipe. This is the pipe that's supposed to take the water to the freshwater tank. I'm going to disconnect this here and see if I have water coming out here. And if I do, then the problem is between here and the tank, and maybe I can find it. If I don't, then I'm not sure what's going on. All right, so you didn't get to see that, but when I disconnected that pipe, all this water started flowing out. I gotta figure that out. Maybe I just didn't give it enough time. Well, I don't know why that happened, why pressurized water was coming out of the outflow hose, unless that was just all residual pressure, but it seemed like a lot. So the next thing you do is you look in the book and try to figure out where that came from. All right, so I'm back up here in the anchor locker, and believe it or not, well, of course you believe it, but what I thought was the fill hose for the water maker was actually the vent hose. So if you can see this piece right here, I thought that was the fill hose. I was looking for water to come out, and it's not. So I put that back on because I noticed that that goes up top, comes along here, and then goes out the front to vent the tank so that air can get in there when it's filling and going down. So I'll rehook that up. I think we were making water successfully. I just didn't know it. I've just got to find where the fill is. Stay tuned. Okay, so this is the gauge that kind of gives me some very basic information, but what I want is the water. So here's tank 1. So it says I have a quarter of a tank. Go back. I want to see if I can get it filled up to a half a tank at 60 liters per hour. That's 17 gallons per hour. So I need about an hour and a half with some fudge factor running the water maker. Now I am running the water maker inside a marina, which isn't the most efficient, so it might take longer than that, but let me see what happens, and I'll get back to you. All right, so I'm firing it back up. I'm going to leave it disconnected so I can see if we're leaking any water. I'm going to bring the pressure up and see what happens. All right, well, it says it's producing good quality water at 60 liters per hour, and it's in the correct pressure. So we're going to let this run for about an hour and a half and see if we're filling up the tank. All right, so the water maker's running. The water comes out of that hose right there, goes down here, follows this along, and then appears to go into the main water line right there, which may mean that it's filling through the bottom of the tank. I'm just going to have to wait and see. Alright, so it's been running for 32 minutes. Maybe I'm over anxious, but let's check. So tank 1. Wow, look at that. Half a tank. Now I know it didn't fill a half a tank, but at least got the gauge to go from quarter to a half. So I must obviously put it back. Obviously, we're filling the system. Let me let it go a little bit further, see if I can get up to 3/4 of a tank. Now that would be nice if we solved this problem. All right, so it's only noon, but let's just see if we're making any water. Maybe I'm jumping the gun, but here's the tank, the water tank. Look at that, up to 3/4. So we've gone from a 1/4 tank to 3/4 of a tank. So we're making water successfully. Go back. The system does it a little differently than I thought, but this is fantastic. This gives us now the ability to leave the dock for days and days and days without having to come in. All right, so I'm back inside the boat. Looks like it was a successful day getting the water maker to work and kind of figuring that whole system out. The reason this is so important is our plan is to spend quite a few of our nights out at anchor, and we have an 80-gallon water tank, and we don't want to obviously go into shore every couple of days and refill with water. With this water maker, we can stay out indefinitely and continue to make fresh water from the salt water. The limiting factor would be some diesel fuel to run a generator to help charge the batteries, but that could last us for months. So, all right, I guess that does it for the water maker recommissioning. Thanks for sticking around, and who knows what the next project's going to be.
Sugar magnolia, blossoms blooming, heads all empty and I don't care. So my baby down by the river, knew she'd have to come up soon for air.